Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. I'm here with my friend Kyle. Hey Kyle.
Hey.
This is the fifth and final round of this Modern Friendly League replay. We've been playing Blue-White Merfolk with Militia Bugler and Sygg River Guide. The matchups have been a little bit weird so far. We saw basically a Boros combo deck that doesn't really exist in the format, but was pretty sweet. And then we lost a Titan Shift, which is to be expected, but was a little bit heartbreaking because we had this epic Game 1 win and could have won Game 2, but tapped out with Counter Magic in hand, and the opponent got us. And then round 3, we lost to Goblins, is that right?
Yep.
They had the smash against our AEther Vial, and then we couldn't sort of claw our way back into the game.
And we noticed we could have won Game 2, maybe.
Yes, just proper sequencing because we played out a Silvergill, which is really terrible against Legion Loyalist because of First Strike. We probably should have played a Lord. And then we beat Living End with some sweet sideboard tech, with Rest in Peace coming to the rescue, and that brings us up to round 5. Looks like the opponent won the die roll, but this is a really nice hand.
Yep.
We're just hoping to not play against some hyper aggro deck this round. We've got some nice value in hand. Bugler, we can slow them down with Trickster and Harbinger. And then eventually get a Sygg down and hopefully get some protection value out of that guy. That 2T may have sent us a message. I wonder what that guy said. I just said good luck. Nice guy.
Yep. Very polite.
Yep. So Verdant Catacombs. Looks like it might be a black-green deck, which is kind of what this build is designed to combat.
Gosh, I hope so.
So drew Mutavault, and if this is black-green, Mutavaults are good against Liliana. Hopefully take her out if she comes down early. Well, it is a black-green deck.
Yeah.
We managed to dodge turn 1 Inquisition or Thoughtseize, which is always good. Now we want to dodge Bob, I guess. Oh, and it's just straight up Junt, so let's see. Scavenging Ooze. I
have to say, I was so excited when I realized it was like a fair deck that we had designed this deck to beat.
Right, yeah, we can actually do stuff here.
Yeah, our cards do things against this deck.
So, I mean, it seems like Trickster is the clear play here, right? So
Definitely.
Liliana is a really poor play here because they're probably not going to be able to have defense for her because we're going to tap the Scavenging Ooze. And as I mentioned, Mutavault is quite good. So it's Liliana, but it's actually the one that's typically like game ending against us.
This is the worst Liliana to see.
Fortunately, it's interesting when this card initially came out. It was nobody that plays Modern thought it was going to be like a game changer. You're like, oh, it's another kind of whatever Liliana, but people started playing it, and it's just clearly legit. I mean, super obviously, it's won huge tournaments. So
it's seeing tons of play in Legacy now.
Is that right? In what decks?
Grixis, Control, and I think also it's sideboarded in Blue-Black Shadow sometimes.
Interesting. All right, so Liliana's coming down. I don't think we're going to be able to kill her like straight up next turn, just because we'll only have 2 power on board, and she'll probably be at 4 loyalty. So we're going to go ahead and tap this Trickster down. Now, I was starting to...
Goose down, you mean?
Yeah, I play Trickster to tap this Goose down. Yes, thank you.
I knew what you mean.
And let's see. I was starting to say when he played Liliana or starting to think that, fortunately, our draw has lined up pretty well against her, in the sense that all of our creatures' toughness are greater than 1.
Sometimes you have hands that are like Silvergill and Master of Waves.
Yeah, Master of Waves.
They play Liliana Last Hope, and you're like, oh no.
Right. Master of Waves is so bad against Liliana Last Hope. Okay, but we do have these Mutavaults. Lords are good. And, against Jund, card draw is good, so Militia Bugler also pretty great. So we have some interesting options here. We can play the Harbinger and just bounce the Scoos, slow them down even more. Lords make all our guys bigger. Militia Bugler draws cards. But I think
we made a sequencing error by not playing the Wanderwine
Wanderwine first.
turn.
Well, I think I might have been leaning towards playing Mutavault. So then playing Wanderwine. So let's see. What is the idea with the Wanderwine, do you think?
So what I think I wish we had done, not this turn, but turn 2, is instead of playing a second island, playing a Wanderwine Hub, so that this turn we had the option of playing a Mutavault and then a Bugler.
Let's see. Oh, well, yeah, I guess so.
I think this line was fine as well, but it was just a sequencing thing. We sort of took away that option for ourselves.
Right. Well, the reason for not playing Wanderwine Hub on turn 2 was we wanted to keep the Trickster secret. Right? I mean, in general, that's usually what you want to do.
I guess we were keeping the fact that we are on Merfolk secret as well.
Yeah, and if you play Wanderwine Hub, revealing a Lord and then you don't play the Lord, or, I guess you could reveal Harbinger, in which case the opponent understands why you're not playing it. But if you're going to play Trickster anyway, you can just reveal Trickster. It's not the end of the world.
I think it's a fine line. It's good. It's good.
Yeah. No, it's always important to think about those possible sequencing adjustments. This looks like Bloodbraid. All right, so Terminate's not terrible. We don't have a lot of important creatures on the board. Okay, Liliana is going to plus targeting Merfolk Trickster. At least we don't lose our creature to Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the opponent got in with Bloodbraid. It just seems...
I don't think I would have done that.
Seems really greedy, right? Because even right now, we can just play a Lord, activate Mutavault,
kill Lily.
And kill Liliana.
Which is what we're going to do.
Yeah, you have to do that. So, chose to play the second Mutavault here. Again, there's questions of land sequencing. By not playing the Wanderwine Hub now, we're still continuing to not really have mana up for these guys, but I think the plan here is just to play a Lord and activate Mutavault, so not sure how relevant it is. So Mutavault will take care of Liliana by itself. I think Trickster's going to get at the opponent.
Yep.
They go down to 14.
The next turn, we can go Lord Bugler, unless something changes.
Right. And dealing with a Liliana, the last hope, is a huge victory for us. Kind of warms the heart.
Definitely.
Our little Merfolk deck. Dealing with Liliana, last hope. Okay, so Tarmogoyf. We've already played out our Trickster. And another Tarmogoyf. Okay, so they've got a lot of power on the board.
It's a good draw from them, and we're hanging right with them.
Yeah. I think, as you were saying, I think the clear play here is Lord Bugler this turn, but Bugler probably first in case we draw something better.
Yeah.
Than a Lord. Something better would probably be maybe a Trickster in this spot.
Definitely a Trickster, yeah.
So another Bugler looks pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, and we already have a Sygg.
Yeah, the other option was Sygg, and it being legendary, we don't really want to right now. Although against these matchups, having multiple Syggs is not terrible because they can remove one and you can play another one. And to remove the first one, typically they'll have to spend 2 pieces of removal if you have an activation up.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
So let's see. We have 10 with Island Walk, but we just need to actually get an island at some point. It's not lethal, but it's getting close. Oh, actually, I mean with the Mutavaults, yeah, more white sources, but we're a long way away from that. Okay, Liliana of the Veil. She can make us sack something. Scoos, and opponent is empty-handed now, so they might actually tick up, and they do. Fortunately, we've got an island that we can discard. All right, so it's a interesting position right now. It's 14-14. They've got 0 cards. We've got 2 cards. They've got Liliana. They've got Liliana. They've got no man lands. We've got 2 Mutavaults. Let's see. Does Spreading Seas off the top just win? Spreading Seas activate 1 Mutavault. It's just 4/4/3/3 6+8. It's Exact Seas. So Spreading Seas is super live out, right? Just lethal. Silvergill's a nice draw.
Double cantripping creatures. Thank you very much. We'll take
that. Yeah, we'll take that. Or, I mean, it seems like a decent time to get Sygg on the board. Because if we can untap next turn with it, we suddenly just have protection moving forward.
Because all the creatures are green on the opposing side.
Yep. I can start with Silvergill, see what we draw.
I mean, we can play either. Oh, yes.
Yeah, so Master of Waves is great, and that just, I think, makes it even better to play out Sygg, but I think we just went with value here. Militia Bugler for a Lord, right? Our guys are just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. I'm not sure that we had a bad line there.
I think we were playing around Inquisition Liliana Plus for the Master of Waves.
So if we had played, for example, Silvergill, drew the Master of Waves, right? We still had Bugler in hand. We could have run out. Okay, I see what you mean, I guess. But I think another reason that we could reasonably sorry, I'm just trying to not get too distracted here. So the opponent actually brought that in untapped to eat one of our creatures, which is still a net loss of life.
I guess they have a bigger Skooz. That's sort of what they chose to prioritize.
Yeah, but they have 3 green mana and 0 cards in hand. So they could have eaten whatever they wanted on their turn.
The top decks.
Okay, yeah, that's as good as it gets for these guys, I guess. Fatal Push.
Sure. Yeah.
Fine, I guess. Gonna make a sack, and I think Bugler's kind of an obvious choice.
Yep, Foot Soldier.
Yeah. Getting in with 1 Tarmogoyf. Interesting. Okay. Some pretty mana-intensive creatures in our hand.
Definitely. I think we have to slam the Master, though.
Yeah. You know, the sequencing on this Sygg is a little bit awkward this game. I guess by playing Militia Bugler, we add a body to the table, but also keep an extra card in hand. And like you were saying, playing around, discarding the Master or something. But it would be great if we had Sygg on the table at this point. But
to be fair, we have 2 Mutavaults in the deck, and we drew both of them early in the game.
That's true. We still really can't attack the creatures on the opponent's side of the board. Kind of all outclass what we're working with right now. And yeah, Skooz is going to have lunch. Gaining life, getting bigger. This is how the Jund matchup goes. Just top deck. Ult your Lord. Each player discards a card. So we can just pitch a Lord. I mean, Lords are great in the matchup, and as I was saying, we were getting pretty close to lethal with Spreading Seas, but only if we have a Lord. So white mana is good in this spot if we can find it, and hey.
Yes. Basic Plains time.
So now it's time to get Sygg out. The opponent is still empty-handed, and at this point, if they try to... I mean, they really don't have many top decks to get rid of Master of Waves. They can't...
Collective Brutality.
What's that? Well, Collective Brutality or Maelstrom Pulse, right?
Or Maelstrom Pulse, yeah.
But we have an activation up now with Sygg.
Feels so good.
Yeah, Fatal Push is not really an option because they don't really have a way of triggering Revolt on the board. All right, so we're just sitting back a little bit. We're going to be able to play a Lord next turn and continue to hold up protection. And as we mentioned earlier, all of the creatures, even Bloodbraid Elf, are green on the opponent's side. So even activating a single time with Sygg can give one of our creatures pro-green, and we can start to get in for some damage, potentially get rid of this Liliana of the Veil, which is getting the opponent a decent amount of value. You know, she makes us sacrifice a creature, and that feeds the Scavenging Ooze.
Yep, yeah, lots of value.
Another Sygg, not necessarily the best draw, since we already have one on board. But here, I think we want to activate Mutavault as our biggest creature getting buffed by Master of Waves. And now we can give it pro green, as I was mentioning, and just knock Liliana down to 1, and hopefully just kill her next turn. So yeah, she goes down to 1. Opponent cracks the fetch land, thin out the deck a little bit. And okay, she's gonna make us discard. And as far as discards go, that wasn't that bad.
Nope.
Scavenging Ooze is going to eat the discard, though, and then he could eat the Lord of Atlantis also. The Scavenging Ooze is getting pretty fat.
Yeah.
But opponent is still empty-handed. I think we probably just want to give one of our creatures protection from green. Doesn't really matter which at this point, since we're just trying to get rid of Liliana. So we gave pro green to the Silvergill Adept. He's going to go on a little solo mission and take down the Liliana. So couldn't play the Silvergill yet because we don't have another Merfolk to reveal. I haven't been talking about how close we are or how far we are away from lethal, because we do have these 6 elementals. So the math is getting pretty close for us because they have 6 blockers. If we activate both Mutavaults and they block, we have something like 14 damage or something like that.
Yeah, we're close.
We're close, but the opponent, can still eat the Lord of Atlantis. But Spreading Seas with a Lord is still a real possibility to win. Got plenty of elementals just to throw in front of this Scavenging Ooze.
I think it may have been more correct to block with one of our Merfolk.
Yes. Totally. We had an activation up there, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, and the opponent was empty-handed, so it was absolutely correct to do that. I think we just kind of were asleep for a second.
Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah, so another Master of Waves
yes.
makes things much, much better, especially with Sygg on the board protecting them.
GG, Jund player.
Yeah, I don't know how they come back from this, because even Maelstrom Pulse doesn't work here. Liliana the Last Hope can minus one of them, but can't minus both, and besides, we still have a Sygg activation up, so... that was
so safe with Sygg on the board,
Say again?
You just feel so safe.
Yeah.
With Sygg on the board.
Well, especially in a situation like that where they're just top decking, right? Because there's no way that they can get 2 consecutive answers.
Yeah.
The fact that we were able to deal with Liliana the Last Hope early was great because, if she targeted a Master of Waves, we'd have to protect it, and then they could throw a Maelstrom Pulse or something, so we would need multiple activations. But since we dealt with her earlier, the only thing they could do is, top deck single pieces of removal, and we had that covered pretty easily with Sygg.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is exactly the type of game that we're hoping to find with this match with this build of Merfolk, and you can see how it works. We drew a bunch of cards with Militia Bugler and Silvergill, and just went super wide with Master of Waves. All right, so let's go. It does feel good. Let's go to game 2. Okay, back for game 2. Let's check out the sideboard. So what's the plan here?
I think it was just 4 Vial out, 4 Rest in Peace in.
Yeah, pretty clean. Makes sense. Rest in Peace in this matchup, not as bomby of an answer as against Living End, but it still does a great job against some of their value cards. Like Tarmogoyf is terrible with Rest in Peace on the board. Scavenging Ooze gets much worse. Polygon's Command can return creatures, so it turns that off. Liliana the Last Hope can get creatures back also, right?
Yep.
So, I guess this is good, huh? It's a pretty good hand. Yep. Spreading Seas is great in the matchup. We were just talking about how Rest in Peace is decent. We managed to, again, dodge turn 1 hand disruption and Master of Waves. Things continuing to develop nicely on our side. All right, tapped Hallowed Fountain. So next turn, assuming that we have all the same cards in our hand, do we go Rest in Peace, Spreading Seas, Lord of Atlantis?
Yeah, I think it's Rest in Peace. Or possibly Spreading Seas because we do Rest in Peace.
I think Spreading Seas is good on the black source, right? Because we can avoid turn 3 Liliana. Yeah.
Yeah.
And drawing cards is always good against Jund.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is an option too now.
A lot of choices.
But, I think it's smart in general to run out your card draw spells against discard decks, because establish the devotion, slow down their development, and draw cards.
Yeah, draw lands to get our Master of Waves online.
That's a good call, right? So, yes, and then we drew a land there, so...
Beautiful.
Drawing cards usually a pretty good thing to be doing.
Against Jund?
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, against anybody, but particularly against Jund. The opponent did have that second black source. Probably a little bit salty that they don't get to play Liliana. All right, Scavenging Ooze just passing through. Well, potentially, representing Kolaghan's command.
True.
Which is very, very strong against our deck. But this seems like a good turn to...
Slam that rest in peace.
Yeah. Well,
oh, wait.
No. We decided to just bounce the Harbinger. I mean, bounce with the Harbinger. We've said it plenty of times, I think, already this league, but if the opponent gives us an opportunity to get value with Harbinger, it's hard to say no.
Very true. And we still have the 2 rest in peace. So they would need 2 black sources and 2 discard spells to get rid of our rest in peace.
Yeah, and they can't even eat anything with the Scavenging Ooze right now, so okay, they're going to Abrupt Decay our Spreading Seas.
Turn on Lily Mana.
Yeah, and Fatal Push the Harbinger. Interesting. Ooh. All in right here. I mean, why spend a Fatal Push on Harbinger? Kind of curious. I guess we might find out this turn.
Oh, Bloodbraid gets in for a free attack. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they cascaded into a Dreadbore, which is uncastable, right? Because there's no creatures on the board.
Seems good for us.
Yep. Bloodbraid takes us down to 14. Land would be nice. And we hit a land. Super nice.
Beautiful. Rest in peace, Hold Up Trickster?
Yep. Okay, that's great, because, if the opponent has a couple Tarmogoyfs in hand, they're not doing anything anymore. Okay, Liliana the Veil, no creatures to sack. Makes our instant speed Trickster that much better. I'm just going to make us discard, and I think it's probably a pretty easy choice here.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah, redundant rest in peace, and just go to the graveyard. Doesn't really hurt us very much. The opponent is on 1 card. What did they discard? A Raging Ravine.
They've already got 1 out.
Yeah. Okay, well, tapping this guy down, we can play Double Lord and kill Lily if we want to.
They do have some mana up.
Yep, so. It's true.
Master of Waves?
Well, I think we choosing not to go with the Double Lord. I think it's probably okay just to go to attacks first, because excuse me, I'm gonna have a sip of water. I mean, I'm not sure what kind of a difference does it make if we play Master of Waves first main versus second. If they have a Fatal Push, they could use it now to keep the Lily high, and then if they have a fetch land next turn and keep the Fatal Push in hand, they could kill the Master of Waves.
True.
So try to lure out. I don't know what's taking so long here with back go through. Okay, so Lily just takes 2. And it looks like the plan here is to just... Oh, I'm sorry. That got jammed up with a bunch of clicks there. So what happened was we played out the Master of Waves. Opponent ticked up Liliana of the Veil, I believe. Plays out a Grimflayer and a Scavenging Ooze. You can see that the Rest in Peace is doing a great job against their creatures. Grimflayer wants Delirium to get big. Scavenging Ooze is kind of a combo with Grimflayer because he throws stuff in the yard and Scavenging Ooze eats it. Rest in Peace keeping all of that in check. And yeah, I guess the opponent ticked up Liliana once their hand was empty.
And we discarded another redundant Rest in Peace.
Yeah, because we drew yet another Rest in Peace, right? And we've got pro red against Bloodbraid Elf, so things are definitely looking up on our side.
Oh yeah.
So let's see. I want to make sure I don't click through a lot of steps like I did accidentally. Silvergill, always good against Jund. So let's see. What are we dealing with here? We've got 10 power on board. With all these elementals, Lily's not really much of a threat. If she tries to tick down, we can just always sacrifice an elemental. The opponent is top decking, and as you know, Jund doesn't have a ton of answers to Master of Waves anyway. So we've navigated to a similar position as last game, where we've got a relatively equalish number of creatures on the board. They've got a Planeswalker, and they're just top decking. So we didn't draw a ton of card draw stuff this game. We had the Spreading Seas, but they've gotten down to 0 cards, and Rest in Peace is just kind of really stymieing their game plan. I think the play here is just run out Silvergill and see what we can draw into. I think Sygg would be really good in this spot, like it was last game, because we could give pro green and poke through again. More Spreading Seas would be good, I think. But as it stands, I mean, just creatures are going to be good. I don't know how careful we should be about playing around something like Anger of the Gods or even Damnation. What do you think about that?
It's usually a one of the Damnation that is in their sideboards. So, you know, if they have it, they have it.
Right. And I mean, we're not going to win without playing out at least another Lord, probably, right? Because, you know, we have to turn our top decks on. Like if we draw Spreading Seas, we want, well, you know, we could just keep the Lords in hand, go Spreading Seas Lord, and then we'd have like 9 to swing with. Hard to say. But I think you're right that it's not really correct to play around singletons when they're literally on 0 cards. So this was a cool attack here because with Rest in Peace in play, they really have no way to make these guys bigger. So they're just 2/2s. And going after Liliana of the Veil, we put them in a position where they have to decide between protecting Liliana of the Veil and losing their creatures, or keeping Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah, it was a cool attack. I like it a lot. And they just say, okay, kill her.
Yeah, so we got to get rid of her there. You know, our creatures' toughness are not that high either, but with Pro Red, we've got a good lineup against Bloodbraid Elf, and trading a Silvergill for one of these guys would be fine, but we're also sitting at 14 life, and if they attack, we have like lethal on the crackbacks, so they're in a pretty poor position right now.
Amazing how effective Rest in Peace is against.
Yeah, so they decided to get in here. They can activate Raging Ravine as a blocker, but not quite sure what they're representing here with this attack.
I mean, Damnation is what I thought, honestly.
Absolutely, that's a good call. Any kind of board wipe, right? So, I think you know we're going to just line up blocks here because we've got Pro Red, I was mentioning, and this seems pretty good. I mean, again, they're very low on cards. We're going to be left with Master of Waves and a bunch of Elementals and a Lord, and they're going to be just empty board. So if they don't have the board wipe, hey, look at that. Damnation. They even managed to get rid of Master of Waves, so
good for them.
Good for them. That was it's especially good because they have this Raging Ravine on the board that can start cracking in. Trickster was an excellent draw there because if they do activate Raging Ravine, they're pretty much just taking their turn off, and we're contributing, getting more bodies onto the board. It looks like that's what's happening here. So that was it. Now, the opponent, I think, scooped a little bit prematurely. We were just going to tap down the Raging Ravine. We'd have 5 damage on the board. I don't think we can draw a card in the replay. What's that?
Yeah, it's only a 3-turn clock. I mean, our opponent had plenty of live top decks, I'm sure.
Right. They probably have an Anger or 2 in the deck, which lets the Raging Ravine continue to get in and wipes our board. But, I don't know. They scooped and we won. And so that was game 2. We just 2-0'd Jund, and we kind of expect to be able to do that. Our deck, as built, is kind of a hard answer to Jund. Of course, the draws can line up poorly, but Rest in Peace is really, really good out of the sideboard. And yeah, Trickster is really good against Tarmogoyf, really good against Raging Ravine. Any final thoughts on how that match went?
I mean, that was exactly what we built the deck to do. So it was really satisfying for me to, you know, both play through the match with you and also to go over it, because it's really great to see, you know, Bugler have a chance to shine in game 1 and Rest in Peace to have a chance to shine again in game 2. it was I think this was my favorite match from the league because it just really allowed all the sort of unique cards that we picked to have their moment in the sun.
Right. And it was you were just talking about this match right now, right? The Jund match?
The Jund match, I mean.
Yeah, and the league, I thought, in general, showcased the deck's sort of axis of operation pretty well, right? I mean, we got to see Sygg in action a few times, I think, right? It definitely came into play against that weird Boros deck.
And then game 1 against Jund, yeah.
Yeah, and then game 1 against Jund. I mean, we saw a whole bunch of Militia Bugler triggers just drawing us cards. And then sideboard stuff. So yeah, we even got to use Settle the Wreckage, which was maybe not the most impactful card, but as we mentioned in the deck tech, this deck's largest weakness is super fast aggro decks, and Settle the Wreckage is one of the best ways for us to sort of blow out an opponent and have a chance in those kinds of games. So a nice league to showcase this particular build, and the metagame might be shifting towards a more sort of black-green oriented format. Have you been seeing a lot of black-green decks, or not so much, now that Assassin's Trophy has been released?
Yeah, I've actually been seeing quite a few. So, I've been brewing some different mono blue options recently, but I'm definitely going to be picking up Bugler Folk in the near future because of how much BGX I'm seeing.
Yeah, have you been seeing more just black-green decks, or more Jund decks, or more Abzan decks, or what?
I've been seeing a spread actually, which really surprises me. I mean, people, I'm sure even rock pilots have their favorite flavor of rock deck, right? Some people, may have been playing Jund for the last few months after, since Bloodbraid has been legal, and maybe they really want to play Abzan though, and so they're, with Assassin's Trophy being printed, maybe their favorite variation is now viable thanks to Atrophy.
Yeah, I saw a build just yesterday, I think, that had 4 paths and 4 Assassin's Trophies, and I think they had 4 Aven Mind Sensor to try to prevent the opponent from actually drawing lands off of those removal spells.
Oh, wow.
A little bit of a combo, right? Because all those spells become much better if you don't actually give the opponent lands.
Yeah, way better.
Yeah, so that was a particularly sort of unique Abzan approach. And I think whenever these new powerful cards come out, people like to go back to the drawing board a little bit and just brew. Like I know there's going to be some like Sultai brews and stuff like that. So
yeah, somebody at my my local shop tested with me a few days ago for a good hour. He wanted to play against a fair creature deck, and so I brought out Merfolk. It was mono blue with Master of Waves and Phantasmal Image, and played a bunch of games, and he loved going Assassin's Trophy, Snapcaster, Assassin's Trophy. That was like the whole reason he built the deck.
Right. Assassin's Trophy is a really, really good answer to Master of Waves. But something I've been thinking about a lot is if the field does actually move really hard towards Assassin's Trophy, then Kira gets really, really good. Because, well, she's just good against spot removal, like in general. But, I mean, she would give us protection for our Master of Waves, first of all. But Assassin's Trophy is pretty much a straight replacement for Abrupt Decay. And Kira is always a little bit weak to Abrupt Decay because she can't stop the spell. So you have thoughts on that? Kira's place?
Yeah. So the way I see mono blue right now, we have about 8 flex slots.
4 like the Curse Catcher and the Rejury spots, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I have been considering running a 2-2 Kira Kopala split if I continue seeing as much black-green X as I am currently seeing.
Yeah, and Kopala is actually really, really good against Walking Ballista because each activation costs 2 mana. Out of the Ballista. So if they want to kill a 2/2, they have to pay 4 mana to do it, which, I mean, it's still pretty good, like repeatable value, but it slows them down a lot. And there's a lot of Walking Ballista in the format. Hardened Scales Affinity is getting super popular.
And Kopala just gets huge. I love Kira, and I think there's a place for her in Merfolk 75s, but Kopala is really great because he does have the ability to really slow down Ballista and Planeswalker effects like Lily Last Hope.
Right, because the opponent, right, it's not just spells, but it's also abilities, right? That target your Merfolk. Activated abilities, right? Not triggered, which is unfortunate because it would be incredible against Valakut.
Oh my goodness, that would be amazing. But
yeah, why? I mean, what triggered abilities were they like worried about in not including them? They could have just said abilities instead of activated abilities.
They could have, but they're usually pretty afraid of giving us powerful cards.
But I mean, can you think of another triggered ability that would be like maybe a Reflector Mage?
That's the main one I think of.
Yeah. Stuff like that. Flicker Wisp, I guess.
Oh, Valakut.
No, Valakut's the big one for sure. Like, absolutely. I'm just thinking like other ones.
Yeah. Well, no. So the first one that came to mind for me was Reflector Mage, because I really hate Master of Waves getting Reflector Maged.
Oh yeah, sure. But I mean, it would be massive for our deck if we had like a hard answer like that to Valakut.
Oh, it would be so important.
Like, imagine if they cast Scape Shift and we Vial in Kapala in response.
Or if they just like double fetch or something with 5 mountains and Valakut out, and all of a sudden
Vial in Kapala,
and they can only kill 1 creature instead of 2, and the math is all completely different.
Right. Well, yeah, and then they probably
really significant.
Yeah, they could probably just start going to our face, I guess. But so anyhow, Kapala with Assassin's Trophy, the format might be moving more towards spot removal, since that's kind of what Jund does, what Black Green does.
Yeah.
If Abzan does become a thing, we might be looking at Echoing Truth a little bit more, deal with Lingering Souls.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. It's still really early. I think the set has been on Magic Online for like a week now, right?
Yeah, and my shop is only selling guilds tonight. Today's the first day. So.
Yeah, today, right? Exact. Today is the first day that it's legal in paper tournaments, I think.
Right? Yeah, so it's a pretty important moment. But as Tux always says in the Discord, observe then adapt. So I guess that's what we'll do.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah, and it's pretty interesting how I think the first time we went around with blue white, well, it was in the summer really with this Buglefolk thing, and Jund, wasn't really much of a thing in the format. It was around, of course, but the fact that we actually came up with this fun brew, and the format might be moving in a direction where it's actually, in theory, better than mono blue is pretty exciting.
It's really exciting, and it's really fun to play. Like certain mechanics that you get to take advantage of with this build, like drawing cards with Militia Bugler is just a fun thing to do. Like
flashing in Sygg and countering a spell is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's just there's so much play to it, and the sideboard cards are sledgehammers, and that's fun. And
if you like, Bridgevine becomes much less daunting if you have Rest in Peace. Although they can go off like turn 1, I know, but people are like, oh, Rest in Peace is too slow, or Relic of Progenitus is too slow. Like, I mean, it's not really true. I mean, it's like,
yeah, it's not. I sat down across from a Bridgevine player a couple of weeks ago at the local, and I cast a Relic on turn 1 of game 2, and he said, "Oh, that's not fast enough." And then he didn't really manage to go off, and then I was able to get a lot of value out of the Relic, and at the end of the game, he was like, "Well, I guess if I don't get the nut draw, then it's okay." And I was like, exactly.
it's not okay. It's like a straight up like hoser for their deck. Like it's like if you don't win on turn 1, this card is going to make you lose the game, basically. Yeah. And very, very few games that they have like a situation where they win on game 1. In my experience, I mean, they don't need to do a ton. I mean, if they get 2 or 3 zombies out on turn 1, that's a lot of times it's good enough, because you're just so far behind on the first turn. They hit for 6 and then 6, and then by the time you get a creature down, you're just chump blocking.
Right, and when you say win, there's actually winning the game, which they don't do on turn 1, but there's effectively winning the game.
Right, exactly. Like getting 3 zombies on turn 1 is effectively winning the game in a lot of cases. If you don't have
triple Bridgevine, the triple Avengevine, and you're just like, okay.
Yeah, right. If you don't have Echoing Truth in hand, or even if you do have Echoing Truth in hand, if they're on the play, Can they actually get 3 Vengevines in play on turn 1? Is that a line? I don't know if that's possible.
I've seen 2 pretty frequently because they can go Faithless Looting, discard 2 Vengevines, Ballista.
Ballista. Okay, fine. Yeah, that's right. And then it's just 8 on turn 1, 8 on turn 2, and then you're hoping to chump on turn. Yeah, and that's just lethal, right?
Yeah.
So
point being, like, that can happen, but it usually doesn't. I think it's a relatively small percentage of games.
I think it has to be well under like 10% or something. I mean, that's like super nut draw.
I don't know. It is a powerful deck, and it has happened to me often enough that I feel like 10% might be a little low. But
I mean, you're talking if you get like 1 Vengevine in play on turn 1, that might be somewhere like 20, 25, possibly, I guess. But if you're talking about double Vengevine, they need to have 2 Vengevine. They need to have 2 X spells that they can cast for 0, and they need to have a Faithless Looting, and they need to have land. So that's 5 specific cards.
No, that's true.
So anyhow, I guess what it boils down to is saying that Relic is too slow is a false statement. Saying that Relic is occasionally too slow is definitely a true statement. And the fact that Relic requires 2 mana to really get full value, get actual value, makes Rest in Peace, the same speed, and in that sense, potentially too slow.
Right, but I mean, it's a really powerful, like, Rest in Peace, Stony Silence, like, Merfolk hates Walking Ballista, and Hardened Scales Affinity is a popular deck right now. So if you have Stony Silence and, let's say, Kopala also, then you're gaining a lot of percentage points against those matchups by running out this type of deck.
Right, because let's see, against Hardened Scales, things that Stony Silence shuts down. I mean, they can't activate Steel Overseer, which is a huge value engine. They can't activate Ballista, like you were saying.
Arcbound Ravager is the main one.
Arcbound Ravager. Now, some of their abilities still work because they're not activated, right? Like the modular guys, right? Like when they die, they get to move their counters, and they get multiple counters from Hardened Scales, but you're not looking at this multiplying effect with Steel Overseer and Arcbound Ravager and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they can't activate Walking Ballista or Hangerback Walker. Right. Yeah, they're not dead in the water, but they're pretty close.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it increases like the odds of winning massively.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I don't even know if regular affinity is a thing in the format right now, but KCI is around, and that's a deck that we have a hard time against. Lantern is a deck that we have a hard time against. So Stony Silence obviously really good against like Codex Shredder and those kinds of things.
Oh yeah, makes Lantern way better.
Not amazing against Ensnaring Bridge, but then we have a couple Echoing Truths. Some people have been trying out Venser, so we have ways to bounce Ensnaring Bridges, but turning off all of their mill effects is super strong. So yeah, obviously Stony Silence, always a good choice in the sideboard. We're still back and forth on, I guess, Settle the Wreckage versus Blessed Alliance. It's probably a meta call. I know you've been testing Wizard's Retort.
I have, mostly in the slower builds of Merfolk that sort of want to make land drops to be able to, cast Master of Waves and hold up a counterspell or whatever.
Yeah, in those slower builds, you're going to more often have the extra mana to pay for Wizard's Retort many times.
Yep, very true. But there are lots of wizards in Merfolk. I mean, I'm not certain that it's better than Deprive. I'm not making that assertion, but I think it's a playable card.
It's absolutely a playable card, and to say otherwise is really silly, I think, because in a lot of situations, a 3 mana hard counter is just fine,
Sure, and a 2 mana hard counter is great if you have like a Silvergill and a Trickster out. You're good, They can
of course, of course. Just like blue counterspell is always going to be incredible value. Yeah. But against like Titan Shift, for example, if you have 3 lands out, and you're going to have a bunch of 2-drops in hand, if you don't have a Vial to play, then holding up 2 mana versus 3 mana doesn't really matter.
Yep.
So there's going to be a lot of situations like that where the card is just very playable, even if it's just cancel.
Right, and the great thing is that sort of the advantage it has over Deprive is that if you're trying to make your land drops to be able to activate Mutavault or Fairy Conclaves or whatever, double spell or double activated ability, whatever. it's easier to be making those land drops and doing that with retort versus deprive.
Is there now this video is getting a little bit long, but I think it's kind of an interesting discussion about how the format's moving with relationship to Merfolk and which variation is optimally positioned right now. What is there to be said for Chalice folk right now?
I think the format is slowing down. And if the format is slowing down, Chalice folk becomes better. The manlands become better.
Fairy Conclave.
Fairy Conclave. And, turning off 1-drops makes cards like Master of Waves and, a lot of our stuff just way more resilient. The Merfolk's a clunky deck. It's a bit slow. And if the format's slowing down and we have ways of making games slow down through Chalice, then Merfolk in general gets way stronger. So I think those are a few of the points that are sort of in favor of Chalice folk.
And I guess the idea that the format is slowing down is based upon the increase in black-green decks. Because I mean, I could, if somebody was to say the format's getting faster, it's sort of hard to argue against that because things like Hardened Scale and Bridgevine are getting super popular at the same time that in theory, I guess slow decks are getting faster. No, slow decks are getting more popular.
Yeah. So, and mid-range, at least historically, has a good matchup against aggro. So if mid-range becomes really popular, hopefully all the Naya Zoo players are going to go, probably shouldn't be playing this deck right now, and they'll switch.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll keep our eyes open and see what happens with the format. We've got a lot of options in Merfolk. And yeah, we'll make some choices and I guess report back on any developments that we observe. So thanks very much, all you viewers, for joining us. Hopefully you enjoyed the league. Please let me know your thoughts on Buglefolk and whether you were impressed, not impressed, if you've tried it yourself. I know that there was at least one other person saying that they tried Militia Bugler in Merfolk. A little bit of an odd choice since it's not a Merfolk itself, but as you saw in some of these games, it can generate a lot of value. It can be a really good blocker. Leave comments down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please check out my Patreon page if you haven't done that yet. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks again. Bye.
Bye, guys.